Hello, and welcome to the second BS report, and probably the last one before World War III. My name is Narayn, and as you can see, I've gone for a new look today. I must add that this was not by choice, because according to my mother, I cannot host a show on YouTube while looking like a beggar of the streets, or like 2007 MS Dhoni, or like Allu Arjun in Pushpa.
पुष्पा पुष्पराज
I should probably lose the glasses. Anyway, today on the I Refuse to Suffer Alone So the World Has to Burn With Me show, we will talk about the Union budget. I'm just kidding, I'm not going to put you through that. Let's talk about the death of democracy. Today, we will talk about the rise of authoritarianism and democratic backsliding around the world and how we fit into it, the reasons why this could be happening, and what we can do about it, or as I like to call it, comedy. Now, what is democratic backsliding? Democratic backsliding can be defined as the state-led debilitation or elimination of any of the political institutions that sustain an existing democracy. In essence, it is when a democratically elected government decides to squat, therefore paving the way for an authoritarian regime. Fun stuff. So, the rise of authoritarianism, because world popularity and COVID cases are not the only things rising around the world. According to the 2021 Freedom in the World report by Freedom House, a non-profit think tank largely funded by the US government, the events of 2020 marked the 15th consecutive year of decline in global freedom. Don't worry, because things get much worse. Out of the 195 countries assessed by the report, only 28 saw an increase in their aggregate score, with the decline being reported in a total of 73. To top it all off, the report states that roughly 80% of this planet's population now lives in a country which is either partly free or not free at all. That is roughly 6.24 billion people. And baby, as far as the decline of democracy is concerned, we are not far behind. India has been demoted from a free country to a partly free country due to, and I quote, a multi-year pattern in which the Hindu nationalist government and its allies presided over rising violence and discriminatory policies affecting the Muslim population and pursued a crackdown on expressions of dissent by the media, academics, civil society groups, and protesters. Okay, I'm not dead yet, we can go on. The report cites individual countries and territories for a sharp drop in their freedoms. Places like Armenia, Belarus, El Salvador, Hong Kong, the Ivory Coast and Sri Lanka are all mentioned for a sharp change in their democratic trajectory. Even the United States of America, a self-acclaimed bastion of liberal democracy, has a mention due to the fact that despite remaining a free country, it has reported an 11-point drop in the last 10 years, putting it amongst the 25 countries with the largest drop in this period. Now, I completely understand if you want to dismiss this report. Honestly, I do. I mean, who in their right mind would claim that just because something is written in a document published by an entity in the United States, that it is accurate and it should be accepted as the truth? I mean, who would do such a dumb thing? Oh. Well, but the fact is, this is not a perfect report. While the Freedom House report assesses our political freedoms and civil liberties, it does not necessarily talk about the overall health of democracy. Now, before you think this is good news and we're all going to be okay, this is not that kind of a show. And that is because the next report is the aptly named Global State of Democracy report by the International Institute for Democratic and Electoral Assistance, also known as IDEA. International IDEA is an intergovernmental organization with 34 members and one solitary observer, Japan. India was a founding member of this body, but that didn't matter at all because in the 80 pages of the Global State of Democracy report, India has been mentioned 44 times and none of them are good. The report saying, in verbatim, India is the backsliding democracy with the most democratic violations during the pandemic. Violations include harassment, arrests, prosecution of human rights defenders, activists, journalists, students, academics and others critical of the government or its policies. Excuse me, I need to check if my family is alright. Critical of the government or its policies. Excessive use of force in the enforcement of COVID-19 regulations, harassment against Muslim minorities, internet obstructions and lockdowns, particularly in Kashmir. Long story short, Just not a good story. Alright, I'm running out of time, so I shall speed run through the remaining ones as I still want to conclude before I'm called for dinner. The next report is the annual democracy report published by the Varieties of Democracy or VDEM Institute, which called India a backsliding democracy in 2021 with a whopping 23% drop in its liberal democracy index. The report called it one of the most dramatic shifts among all countries in the world over the past 10 years and even classified India as an elected autocracy. Side note, do you know how screwed up your democracy has to be to not be even called a democracy? Moving on, the Democracy Index 2020 published by the Economist Intelligence Unit ranked India at 53 out of 167 countries. While this sounds decent, it must also be noted that in 2014, India was ranked 23rd. And the report also kinda sorta singles out our Prime Minister by name. Not again, oh shove off. Next, India ranks 142 out of 180 countries in the 2021 World Press Freedom Index published by the international non-profit Reporters Without Borders. While this sounds terrible, things are actually much worse because it's us, and of course they are. The organization actually categorizes our Prime Minister as a predator against free speech. You may think that there's possibly can't be more, but like DJ Khaled, there's always another one. The international NGO Human Rights Watch did not forget us in their 2022 World Report, which called our backsliding on rights dangerous. Now, the Human Rights Watch has complaints with every country under the sun, and it is an organization that is far from perfect. Its moral past is checkered at best with some unfortunate donations from a Saudi businessman, but it's still not good that an organization that is literally called Human Rights Watch has serious beef with you. As always, I have saved the worst for last. This volume of criticism against the erosion of our democratic norms hasn't gone unnoticed by opposition parties. They've simply jumped to blaming the government in power, but there's a solid chance that the public may itself be complicit. A new YouGov Mint CPR Millennial survey suggests that urban Indians across party affiliations hold great appeal for autocratic tendencies. The article says, a majority of respondents support authoritarianism over democracy and approve the idea of dismantling parliament and elections in favor of a strong leader or technocrats, the survey found. A similar share of people also advocated for military rule. Now, while our hearts ache to blame our current Prime Minister for these survey conclusions, the survey data also suggested that there are no partisan links to such views, and that as a matter of fact, supporters of the BJP were slightly less likely to support rule of a single authoritarian leader or the military than the supporters of Congress and other political parties. This brings us to finally asking one question. Is this hair working on me? I was kind of bummed out when I first saw it, but now I'm thinking I'm pulling it off. Anyway, the more important question, how did we get here? Study suggests a common feature is polarization of our society, obviously caused by politicians with their combative rhetoric and fame-mongering, exacerbated by sensationalist media and a social media environment that can successfully radicalize a tree. Research also suggests that such change is incremental in nature, with each step of degradation making it easier to pursue the next one. So finally the question is, what can we do about it? And the answer is, there is a 100-page document on this by the Brookings Institute, but I possess neither the emotional maturity nor the patience to read it. A brief look at the 4-page summary basically said what Alistair Moody said to Harry Potter: constant vigilance. The basics are for the public to be as informed as possible, support fair and independent journalism, engage in civic duties like voting, to safeguard the independence of the judiciary, and empower the legislative branch to put a check on excesses by the executive. And we are screwed. And that is the show for today. Please like the video if you like it and subscribe while I look for a way to get a visa to Canada or New Zealand. Anyway, goodbye, thank you, and I love you.